I can post it on YouTube. If you want to look at it again, you can. So
I sent you the note if you notice, but I think when you gave me the feedback, I think you sent me the original text, not the corrected one.
oh, you didn't get my comments?
No.
Oh no. Okay, well let me attach them now. How could I? Because it opened up in my. Oh, gosh. Okay, so here they are. Here it is. Okay, so I just sent it to you, and as an attachment, and
Through email?
yeah, Gmail.
Okay.
So let me open up your file here, and this is what I sent you. So in terms of objectives that I have in the class to work with the students includes to improve your English, or work with you to help you polish your excellent English skills. And so if I make, someone told me once that the best way to help a student improve their English is to make sure that they feel like they own what they're writing, that it's their own choice rather than me tell you how you should do it. So that's why I often, when I make a comment, I give you two options in terms of how to correct the paper, or correct this, or not correct, but polish it, polish the language. So that's why I just don't tell you how I would write it. I let you, either one that I send is okay, is acceptable. It's just a matter of you choosing one as you, when you write the paper. So you start off here. If the European integration continues, it will decrease the opportunities of the citizens of the member states to participate in a liberal democracy or in a political system that remains liberal democratic. So, either one is okay. Either one of those phrases is okay. It's just a matter of you choosing which one you want to use. Okay. So, and so you're right. In the beginning of the Europeanization, the European integration, there was a definite intention to avoid another war in Europe and to prevent other countries like Nazi Germany, Mussolini's Italy. So rather than say to happen, you might say to emerge or to develop.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, that's up to you to choose. I'll let you choose. And it means, you don't typically want to start a sentence with which. That's it's called a sentence fragment. So I cross that out, and you can write it means or it requires, either one, to develop liberal democracy and prevent authoritarianism or totalitarianism. So in the beginning of the European integration, the member states intended increasing and maintaining opportunities for liberal democratic political participation. But now that the European Union's main purposes are to achieve economic development and to maintain European Union stances of world power, the European Union is forcing its policies through enhancing their control over domestic agendas. Okay, so you go on here. Even though the policies of the European Union are or have been made by the representative member states, these policies often oppose the will of the citizens of the member states. It is clear that levels of public support for European integration decline. Okay, the number of Eurosceptics, ones who oppose European integration, have increased. Some reasons why the Eurosceptics oppose the European Union are or include, because you say you have reasons, which is plural, means more than one. So that means you can't use is, you have to use the plural form of the verb, which is are, or include. Either one is up to you. You can choose, okay? That the European Union undermines national sovereignty, and because the EU is elitist and lacks democratic legitimacy and transparency. As it is mentioned above, the representatives of the member states are not directly elected by the citizens of the member states. That's an issue. Okay, that's a problem. Why? And I'm sorry that you didn't get these comments. But so I say that's a problem because the members of the European Parliament are directly elected. You say that they're not directly elected, but they are directly elected. At least the members of the European Parliament are.
Or I think I meant by like they don't have like the direct votes like elections from the citizens, not the representative. Like they get these people like the people in the European Union, right, or European Council, they are not directly elected by like the Germans or the Italians or the
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, the people at in the Council of the European Union, which is the general name for the meetings of the ministers of each of the member states. Each of those ministers, like when they're called the Council of the European Union, it has a different formation. So when the European Union is discussing agricultural policy, the agricultural minister, the minister for agriculture from Italy, Spain, Bulgaria, Greece, Cyprus, they all get together, the agricultural ministers, and that's one formation of the Council of the European Union. But each of those ministers, they're ministers in elected governments in their own home countries, right? Each of
but
them.
they're nominated by the like the president or prime
Oh, well,
minister.
I
They're
mean,
not.
oh, sure, there's a bureaucracy, a civil service in the European Union that works for the European Union, and those people are selected through professional entrance examinations. They take tests. Those people are not directly elected. And there's about what 40,000 of those people total. About the
Yeah,
size of. So
so
go
what
ahead.
I meant in the sentence was that like these people in the European Union, like the representative in the European Union, they are not directly elected like by the citizens, like the prime ministers or
Well, in the Council of Ministers, they
premiers
are.
or
The Council of the European Union, those are all ministers who are in national governments. And those national governments are democratically elected by the citizens of Germany or Italy or France or Bulgaria or Spain or all of the member countries.
so. So what I'm saying is that, like, for example, in Korea, the president and senators they're elected by the people, right? By the
Yeah.
citizens, but not who's it the head of whatever the foreign minister, like the head of the foreign ministry. They are not elected by the citizens. They are nominated by the president, right?
Well, it might depend
So
on
in
the on
that
the.
way, they are not directly not they are not directly what's it chosen by the people.
Well, I mean, that then you can say that the governments of the European Union are also not directly elected by the people because it depends on the
Yeah.
kind of election system that each of them has. But typically, let's take Germany, right? So when a German voter votes in elections, they vote and they elect parties. They vote for parties, and the parties that are able to form a government are those parties that are able to come together and control a majority of the elected seats uh, in the German parliament. That's democracy, right? And then the leaders of those parties that form that majority of the members of the parliament, the leaders they become the ministers, right? They're the professional top guys, and then they become the ministers because they're typically the leaders of their parties. Even though people typically don't vote for that person, I want Gunther Schmidt to be minister for agriculture. Nobody does that. Nobody does that anywhere. They vote for a party or they vote for an individual, but they don't vote directly to choose the ministers. They vote for a party to go into the parliament, and then if the parties that control a majority of the votes in the parliament, they form a government, and those government become the ministers. Those are the ministers, and those typically are the leaders of the parties. And the most powerful
So
leader of the biggest party typically becomes the prime minister, right?
the ones who ones who were chosen by the party to be the leader is like they don't have like the full agreement of the supporters of the party, right? So for example, the second party in Korea now, they are electing their head of their party, and they're the people who are supporting them, they're like very divided. So what I'm saying is that it's like they are kind of like indirectly elected by the people. I mean, the people who make up the party are elected by the people, but the leader is chosen by the elected ones, right?
Yeah.
So they are kind of like indirectly elected by the people, not directly. That's what I was kind of saying.
Well, okay, but then, you know, but then you can say that no government is democratic. Anywhere, in America, in Germany, in Italy, in South Korea, there's no democracy anywhere.
Well, I mean, like the president and the senators, they are directly elected by the people.
Oh,
Right?
okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay, in terms of getting back to the European Union, that has been a criticism. And you might want to make that more clear than in your paper, that there's been a lot of talk about, you know, why don't European people like the European Union? Why is there more European skepticism? And some people say, you know what? We need to directly elect the president of the European Union, the same way South Koreans directly elect the president of the Republic of Korea, and the Americans elect their president. There needs to be a direct election. Or the way the French,
I should rephrase it like the president for the members states in the European Union are not directly elected or something.
Well, yeah, the problem is that there's who you're going to elect, because there's a president of the European Council, which is a unfortunate translation of the name. He's more like the general secretary, but he's called officially in English the president of the European Council, and he's like the top secretary. He's an executive secretary, and his job is to prepare the meetings when the prime ministers and presidents all get together in the European Council. He doesn't tell them what to do. He doesn't have power. He's not like the South Korean president or the French president, or he's more like Ban Ki-moon was in the United Nations when Ban Ki-moon was general secretary. He didn't tell anybody what to do, but he was trusted. He was trusted by the Americans, by the Russians, by the Chinese, by the French, by the British, and that's why they chose him to be the General Secretary of the United Nations. And that's the same thing going on with the European president. So and there's the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. She's not directly elected by the voters of the European Union. She's chosen by the European Council, when the presidents and prime ministers all get together and they decide who they want to be president of the European Commission. Then the European Parliament has to vote to approve that. But yeah, so you know, they have to think about, those presidents and prime ministers have to think about who they want to choose to be president, in terms of making sure that a majority of the people in the European Parliament will say, okay, we agree. But so there's been that talk that there's supposed democratic deficit in the European Union that is somehow connected to Euroscepticism, the growing Euroscepticism, that some people claim that it would, a good medicine against that would be to have direct election of the president of the European Commission, because that person is really the most powerful person working just for the European Union, is the president of the European Commission. And that's that woman, that former German defense minister, minister of the military, Ursula von der Leyen. And that person should be directly elected. And you know, if you do a Google search, you'll find all sorts of stuff on Google about that. But the European Union won't do it. And they won't do it because they think it's going to cause more problems than it solves, I think. You know, they don't come out and say, we think it's a bad idea. They just don't say anything. And I think they think it's a bad idea because, you know, what are the chances that someone from Cyprus is ever going to be elected president of the European Commission in such a system? What is the chance? And everybody gets afraid. I'm like, we're going to elect the president of the European Commission. It's always going to be a big, powerful German, because 88 million people live in Germany. And the Germans are going to vote for the German person. The French are going to vote for the French person. The Italians are going to vote for the Italian person. And then you come up with some kind of system where you have a runoff, and you know, but there is talk about that out there. But you know, then you have this concern about nationalism. I mean, what if you're I'm trying to find something. What if well, I mean, I'm trying to imagine something that's never happened. Like, what if you're I'm trying to think about two groups that don't like each other that are in the European Union today. If you're, you know, Czechoslovakia broke up 30 years ago into two separate countries, Czech Republic or Czechia and Slovakia. If you're a Slovak, and a Czech person gets elected to be president of the European Commission, and you're Slovak, Are you going to trust that? I mean, maybe you can say, of course they would, because the European Union is so complicated and so nobody's ever going to be able to use their position to do what's best only for the Czech Republic. And, you know, okay, and there's talk about that, and maybe they need to do that. Maybe they need to think more seriously about this, because like we talked about in class on Monday, you know, things are getting more and more Euroscepticism. Even like in Switzerland doesn't want to deal with the European Union directly as much anymore. You know, weird things are going on, and maybe they need to think about this. But okay, but let's get to the point. If you're going to talk about how I suggest this, and I'll send you this paper again, right? I suggest you talk about directly electing by popular vote, by popular EU citizen vote, the president of the European Commission. So that comes up, and that was a lot of talk about that, but then things got preoccupied with all the crises, you know, with the migration crisis, and before that, the Euros. Yeah, there was some talk several years ago about this, about we should directly elect, and then that all stopped when there was the migration crisis, when over a million people started coming into European Union, and now we got the coronavirus. But they might need to, you know, think about that. I'm just trying to, you got to, you know, because once you try to do something and then you can't undo it. So if they decide they're going to elect the president of the European Commission, they can't change their mind because it turned out to be a bad idea, or it's very extremely difficult to do that. And the concern is that somehow with that idea, would that intensify suspicions and fears among the different national groups in the European Union? That if, you know, they elect somebody, they make some kind of system like they just had elections, for example, in Peru, right? In Peru, they have, or like in France, they have a system where all these people run for president, and if nobody gets 50% of the vote, then the top two vote getters then vote in a second round. So that's what's going to happen, right? Nobody's going to get 50% of the votes next year in France for president, and they'll have a second round like they always do. And it'll be Emmanuel Macron and against Marine Le Pen, because they will get the two biggest percentage of votes in the first round. So let's say they have that kind of system in the European Union to elect the president of the European Commission. So you try to imagine scenarios where, you know, all of these different people, but, you know, if you're a Czech, you say there's no way a Czech is ever going to win. I mean, there's only 10 million people live in the Czech Republic. There's no way we're ever going to have a Czech president of the European Commission. It's always going to be, first off, it's always going to be someone from a big country. You know, but look at the presidents of the European Commission. Okay, we've got who's the president of the European Commission now? It's Ursula von der Leyen from Germany. Okay, that's a big country. But before her, it was that former prime minister of Belgium. No, Luxembourg. Claude, what's his name? Van Juncker. He's the prime minister of Luxembourg. 700,000 people live there. And he was chosen because he's from Luxembourg. He doesn't threaten anybody. He's not seen as pro-German. He's not seen as pro-French. He's not suspected to be pro-German or pro. And before him, it was who was, you know, sometimes it's big leaders like Italy, but other times it's small. Sometimes it's for people from Belgium. Sometimes it's people from France. There's been at least two presidents of the European Commission who are from Luxembourg, prime ministers of Luxembourg. But you can imagine if they do something like that, there's never going to be. Maybe I'm just trying to, you know, it's because it's all imaginary. And you just, you know, we look at the experience of how they do it in France and how they do it in other countries. And can you ever imagine a situation where, you know, somebody coming from a small country somehow comes in, you know, so yeah, it's complicated, right? But I can see how you might argue that, well, maybe you have a difference. Maybe you have the American system where like everybody, each of the member states sends a group of electors, like the Electoral College of the United States. They elect electors, and those electors get together, sort of like how the Pope picks, how they elect the Pope. You know, all the cardinals get together and they vote among themselves. They make deals with each other, and that's how they pick a Pope. You know, something like that. some way about some increasing in some way the democratic participation of voters in some way by voting for the European Commission president. So whether it be a French runoff system or some electoral college. I appreciate, talking about this because, all I do is sit in my office and read and write. And I don't talk to so now I'm trying to think, it's glad you brought this up because I haven't thought about this in a few years. There was a lot of talk about it a few years ago and then it stopped because everybody got focused on the immigration crisis and what was going to happen and Brexit. Oh yeah, I forgot about Brexit, right? Then the British voted to leave, and oh my God, are they going to leave? And so you have the immigration crisis, then Brexit, and you can say, well, maybe things would have been different if they didn't elect a president of the European Commission. Would the Brexit not have happened? Oh, I don't know. There was some talk about the first, there's only been like 3 presidents of the European Council. I told you like that secretary for the European Council, the general secretary, the president. And there was some talk, there's only been 3 of them. And the first guy that was selected was a former prime minister of Belgium, Herman van Rompuy. Belgium, little small country, all divided between the French speakers and the Dutch speakers and the German speakers, doesn't threaten anybody, is too small, and is not seen as pro-German or pro-French. So they went with this guy as the first. And there was talk about maybe that should have been a big, powerful person. Like there was talk about Tony Blair, the former prime minister, Labour prime minister of Britain, should have been the first president of the European Council. And there was talk about it, and they decided against it. And you got to wonder if Tony Blair, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have made any difference. Who knows? You can think about it. But if Tony Blair had been the first president, but they couldn't make him the first president because Britain wasn't in the Eurozone. How can you make the president of the European Council somebody from a country that refused to join the Euro? Well, why not? Maybe that's what needed to happen to keep Britain from leaving. Not just the whole European Union. They left the whole European Union. Maybe I don't know. You have to just think about, you need a theory to think about what we're going to cause and effect. What if we'd done that? What if we'd done something else? And what should we do now? Okay. Okay, so that was my main concern because, I'm thinking about, well, the European Parliament people, they're elected. The members of the European, and there's 720 of them, and they're all directly elected. And then, of course, the governments of all the member states, they're the governments because they were directly elected by their nations, by their citizens.
They're not like, they weren't like 100% agreed upon by the citizens, like
right.
Even though they are elected by the majority of the people.
Yeah. So you're talking about
they had like 100% like supporters, and then if they elect like this European representative, then it would be like totally democratic, right?
Yeah, you raise a lot of important issues. How do you convince people? It comes down to this, like we talked about in class on Monday. How do you convince people that I am the boss and you should listen to me when I tell you what to do? You have to pay your taxes. You got to give me a lot of money in taxes. If we go to war, you got to send your son to go fight in the war. And I have the right to tell you to do that. I have the right to speak in the imperative voice. And you agree because, well, you were elected, Ben, as president of South Korea. And I must obey you as a citizen of South Korea. You have the right to tell me what to do. How do you convince Europeans that that's true with any democratic political system? It's all about legitimation. How do I get you to do what I want you to do because you think you should do it? Not because I'm going to punch you in the face if you don't. How do I, although I will, but that's bad way of controlling people. You want to control people because they think they should listen to you. They should obey you. It's their moral, ethical obligation. How do you convince people of that? And of course, elections play an important role for that. Well, he speaks for the American people. He's the president. He won the election. He speaks for South Korea, or she speaks for South Korea. She won the election. And I'm a Korean. Now you can say that's all stupid, but it's still, you have to, that's politics. And that's true for any democratic political system. You know, we got a lot of problems with that in the US today because we have this old system set up. So Donald Trump didn't win a majority of the votes for president. Hillary Clinton did, popular votes. But because of the old system the Americans set up, Donald Trump was still able to become the president under the rules of the old system. So people are saying, does this guy really have the right to tell me what to do? This guy who got 4 million less votes than Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton is not the president, but this guy is. So that's a problem in all political systems, and it's a problem that never goes away, and it's a problem you always have to address if you're the authorities in your country. How do you change the rules and modify policies as people's values change? They become more educated, they become more prosperous, people become more critical, they become more wise, they get more information. Now they all have cell phones, they're all on Google, they're on Facebook, they're getting all sorts of misinformation, false information, real information, too much information. People change. So how do you, in that dynamic changing world, do you continue to convince people as they change that they should obey? Okay, so and then there's some other, because we're getting close to the end here. You mentioned here about the if the citizens of the member states continue to oppose the European Union's policies, then it might lead to another Brexit to happen, because the main issue is sovereignty. The European Union is clear that countries like Germany and France actually has more power than countries like Bulgaria and Greece. Yeah, sure. But one of the points I keep mentioning in my work is that the European Union is so complicated that it does a good job of convincing Bulgarians and Greece, even though they're small and poor countries, that the European Union is not a way for the Germans to build a German empire over these small countries, because there are so many different sources. It's so many different centers of power. The term is polycentric. We just talked about it. You got a president of the European Council. You got a president of the European Commission. You've got directly elected members of the European Parliament. You've got member state governments. You've got the European Central Bank. You've got all of these different different bodies, and so the Polish people, the Bulgarian people, the Greek people, they tend to be very suspicious that basically big rich Germany is using its money to build a new secret German empire, and that's quite an achievement, considering what Germany did in World War II. Killed, well, we don't want to talk, but so it goes on here, and countries with weaker powers will have to adapt to policies that strongest countries support. For example, European Union is proposing to accept refugees mainly from minorities, but no country wants to have unidentified refugees in their homeland. In the end, the weaker member, like Greece, will be forced to accept it. This is clear and under. Yeah, okay, but I point out, Greece only has 80,000 refugees. I know they're 1/8 the size of Germany, or 1/9. Germany, I think, is 88 million people. Greece is 10 million.
And also, plus, like Germany is like the leading member state of the European Union, and if they want to like kind of establish some kind of policy, then they will have to kind of do it in the like forehand. Like they should kind of like show the example, so the rest of the countries might like follow.
Yeah, so Greece has got 80,000. That's a pretty small number compared to Germany. But the way you talk about it here, it seems like you're saying that Germany forced Greece. And of course, we talked about it in class, how even though the European Union decided through its regular procedure of qualified majority voting that all of the countries in the European Union had to take some, Hungary and Poland are not taking them. Remember I did this in class?
And yeah, exactly. So it's like I'm saying, like they're not really forced. Like the Greece is not really forced, but they are kind of forced, because like Poland may not need the economic aid like at the very moment, but like the Greece is in like the economic crisis, so they need the economic aid at the very moment. So like they kind of have to accept what the Germans or the leading member
Yeah,
states of the European Union want them to do.
sure. And the Greeks accepted it. The British don't think they have to do pretty much anything. The Greeks do. So the British left.
Yeah,
So there is that that you have to there has to be a prevailing, not the only, but a prevailing belief in the collective belief in these countries that they ultimately need each other. And so they have to compromise because they ultimately need each other. The British, they're more nationalistic. And so they stereotype and then they overestimate their power capabilities and they think we don't need to do this. The Greeks think they don't have any choice because they think they are poor and backward and they're kind of embarrassed about themselves. They're like, so are the Italians. I mean, they view the European Union, they will modernize we poor backward Greeks who were 500 years under the Turkish yoke. Oh, we want to be modern. We want to be modern. We want to be European. So please, European Union, modernize us. Modernize. The British don't do that
yeah,
because they have a different history, right? But everybody else does do that. I mean, everybody else does, except maybe the countries that are not in the Eurozone. Because 8 of them are not in the Eurozone, 19 are, but the ones that join the Eurozone, they really buy in, they bought into this notion that Europe means being free and modern. But like I said, Denmark is not in the Eurozone, Sweden is not in the Eurozone, and these are 2 rich countries. And then there's East European countries are not in. Bulgaria desperately wants in. Let us in, let us in. The European Union says, no, you're too corrupt, man. Your judges are bought off by mafiosi. No, we're not letting you in yet into the Eurozone. And then there's Poland, which they could join, but I don't think they want to because there's still that fear, I think, of Germany. And the Czech Republic hasn't joined. Slovakia, yeah, man, they're in the Eurozone, but the Czech Republic isn't. And I wonder why. And this doesn't come out in public opinion, but again, it's that legacy of World War II, that they have always had a phobia, like the Poles, about Germany, but there's only like 12 million Czechs. There's 88 million Germans, not including the Austrians. If you include the Austrians, there's 90 million Germans, at least in Europe. And the Poles, there are 40 million of them. But they can be more assertive. But the Czechs, they've always been, we're Slavs, and we're surrounded by all these in this ocean of Germans who think that we're basically Germanicized Slavs. Okay, so you go on. The European integration is similar to the globalization in the aspects that they both try to develop economic and culturally, but the difference is that in the globalization, liberalism is much more visible. Are you saying it's much more visible because it produces nationalistic backlash? I mean, that's what globalization is all about. You get all of these bigger differences and inequalities between the well-educated and the less well-educated, between people who can speak more than one foreign language and those that can't, between you get more migration of people coming into the United States or South Korea from poor countries to do difficult, dirty, and dangerous jobs. And that's all part of globalization. And are you saying that this globalization makes
no, I was like more talking about in like the political sense. Like, I mean, European Union has like the committee and council and all kinds of stuff, and like they have like the annual or like some kind of like get together and they talk about and discuss stuff, right? But I mean, like in globalization, like the countries are like tend to be more nationalistic, right? They kind of like chase for their country's own goods. So like kind of they like in the globalization standard, they kind of like tend to follow like what they want on like what they want in like in their own country wise. But in like European Union, they kind of like discuss things with each other, kind of like give and take and stuff. So to me, it seemed like they are more democratic than like the countries in like the in globalization standard.
You mean the Europeans are more democratic or the other countries are more democratic?
The European Union.
Yeah, okay, that I see what you're saying. I mean, well, yeah, I mean that's what I say here. That basically, if you're saying that globalization and Europeanization are the same thing, basically, except the European version of it. Yeah, I mean, everywhere you see more participation, for good or bad. You know, like with Facebook and social media. You know, everybody's getting more opportunities to express themselves just by sitting at a computer. But that you need to make that clear here, is that globalization in Europe or otherwise, liberal democratic is much more visible. So where you wouldn't put China in there then, right? China, you would not say is globalizing.
No, that's why I'm saying that the European Union is more democratic than the globalization. Because I mean, they are like the communist countries like China or
Okay,
Russia.
well then you should. Okay, then why don't you say that? Then in the Europeanization,
Yeah.
liberal democratic is more okay. Okay, so you fixed that up. The Europeanization was especially helpful for most communist countries to practice liberal democracy, but is now deteriorating. The European Union might not be the best way to practice the nation's democracy. Yeah, because of nationalism. Yeah, I mean, the main problem here was I wasn't clear what you're arguing up here. You know, what you're arguing up here with all of this stuff. Okay, so yeah, I mean, hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's just, okay, so let me go ahead and send this to you. You have any other questions?
So like the main problem of this the final draft was that you wanted to kind of you want me to fix up the European committee stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make that more clear that the European you're talking about the European Commission president is not elected.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because the European Union is always saying we're all about democracy. That's what we're all about. We're all about participation. And so when I read that you say, well, it doesn't really, they're not really directly elected,
No.
but so you're talking about the European Commission president.
Okay.
There should be some kind of election for that person. They say, well, the defenders of the European Union say, well, the European Commission president, they have to be approved by the European Parliament, and the European Parliament is directly elected. And just the same way that, for example, um, the Prime Minister of Italy, he becomes the Prime Minister of Italy not because he's directly elected, but because the Italian Parliament chooses that person. So that's what they say when they defend the current system, that the European Commission president is nominated by the European Council, and then the European Parliament has to approve that person and the entire commission. Just like, in a sense that the Italian Parliament, chooses who's going to be prime minister. The same is true as Germany. Germany's got a weak president, a strong prime minister, but people, when they vote, they're not generally, except for a small group of people, because I can't talk about the German system because that's different from the Italian system and the French system and the Bulgarian system, but they're typically electing a party. They're typically they're voting for a party. And so that's what they say. It looks just like, the European Union looks like a European democracy. But you're saying that's not enough. They've got to go even further, and they've got to directly elect the president, in some way, directly elect the president of the European Commission, the same way that in some similar way how South Korea elects its president and how France elects its strong president. Because France and South Korea both have strong presidents. Germany's got a president, but it's more like an elected king. He just, he's not really, he doesn't do much, right? They used to have a strong president before World War II, but then they got rid of, they have a new system.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. You can always send me an email if you have other questions. And let me make sure I send you I don't screw this up again. And wait a second. I'm looking for the paper because okay, I closed it already. So go like this, you go here, you go like this. This. Here it is. Okay. Bye. I'll send you the link, okay? So you can watch this to this video, to this recording, okay? All right, bye.